Welcome to What's Rising. There's something uncomfortable or unknown about this particular podcast for me. I guess it'll reveal some things about my journey, and lots of things I don't know also, and some of the things I've experienced around the idea of evil and the paranormal and things like this, which I've had a side interest in but not explored in depth. Just some experiences that are interesting. I had no plans to do a podcast on this topic of evil or the perception of evil today. But last night I woke up in the middle of the night with a dream. And it was a fairly intense dream. And the background of the dream was someone who was really a nice person. I knew they were a good person, and yet I was sure they had stolen money from my wallet, and then they stole some other money in a second time. And then I think I woke up and then went back to sleep and continued the dream, and I found myself removing an evil spirit from this person. The person was not acting in their normal behavior. They weren't, as far as I knew, through and through, they weren't a dishonest person, yet their behaviors were dishonest and that they stole from me, and it was almost unbelievable. So that got me contemplating this morning about possession and evil. And if we look out into the world right now, we can see tremendous good happening, and generally I see tremendous good, but we are experiencing a level of hate and evil that, it's always been there, but it's really rampant in the news, and there's almost like an insanity, a possession of parts of the collective that are hating the haters, hating the racists hating others, or whatever it may be, and such disturbance in our way of being. It's like a rise of some sort of evil, or is it like a possession? I'm not new to the idea of possession, and in my dream, in a sense, I was doing things that I might do on occasion, if I was releasing a entity from someone, although that's not the normal way I would do it, like I did in the dream. I've experienced releasing entities from lots of different people. They used to show up in my workshops all the time and cause disturbances then, and I wouldn't say they were evil, they were like entities, they were possessions, possessing people. They would completely throw the workshop I was doing, the format, in tatters. Nothing would work, and I would go, what's going on that nothing's working like it's supposed to? And so then I would start questioning and look to see what was there, and discover sometimes some entities had invaded the space, and I would do some processes to clear them from the space, and everything would go back to normal. And I would use it as a teaching opportunity for the students, because I was teaching them some other things around beliefs and changing beliefs, and in the advanced courses, we'd go beyond that. So I was no stranger to that, and sometimes even I would work with people at a distance. There was an occasion where there was this man in Africa that had some very difficult times, and he was put into a psychiatric center in Africa. And one of my students in the workshops had mentioned that and asked, could I help him in terms of working at a distance to change of beliefs? And I said, well, at the end of the workshop, if we have time, I will work with them together, and I'll teach you how to do this, and we'll play with that. So that's what we did, and we worked with this man for about 15-20 minutes towards the end of the workshop, and I was just inquiring into what might be going on for this man who was having difficulties and quite disturbed in the psych center, and he had been fine just a few weeks prior, according to his friend here. And we discovered that there was an entity possession, and in my way, I worked with releasing that from the individual. And we got some feedback the next day or the following day that the brother of the man had visited him in the psychiatric center or hospital, and for the first time in weeks he got up early. His color in his face was better. He was feeling much better. He ate a full breakfast, which he hadn't been doing. And the man described that about midnight the night before, he was in this internal struggle almost between light and dark. A terrifying time. Is like he was fighting some kind of energy around midnight, and exhausted, he had fallen asleep, and in the morning he was fine. This was the exact time that we were working with him the previous that previous day in Canada time. So something happened there, and a week or so later we heard the psychologist released him and said, hey, whatever you're doing, just keep it up, because this is amazing recovery from wherever you are. He didn't know what the psychologist that was working with him or psychiatrist didn't know what was happening with him. So I've had many experiences like this. People sometimes will get sick in my workshops, more than one person. I go, hey, what's going on here? Is it food poisoning? Is it something else? Discovering they're both got some kind of entity attached to them. Released the entity, the nausea, everything went away very, very quickly. So I'm contemplating right now what is the nature of evil. I have not worked with people that levitated or spoken strange languages or twisted their heads like the Exorcist. I have not dealt with that level of possession. Just light stuff in a sense. And I have never been in this place of being fearful of those energies that showed up. I've always had a sense of, something's going on here. How can I release this energy? What do I do with it? And usually it's the belief is, for the ones I've worked with, is some entity that wanted release, actually wanted help. So compassionately work with the entity to allow it to go where it needed to go, and then work with the individual that had the possession or the entity attachment, plugging up the hole or the belief system that allowed that entity to attach to them so that it didn't happen again. And these entry points, what can provide an entry point? Things like drug abuse and other deep trauma, I'm assuming, can provide those attachment points. And so when you're dealing with an entity, you need to heal or close those places that allow the entity to attach. Maybe it's a deep anger or something like this that allows an entity or a pain body of anger or something to attach to that, and then work with that to release. Now, this is all kind of strange stuff if you're not used to it. And other people have friends of mine have a sense of these dark energies. I don't. I've never had any sense. I just notice a disturbance. I'm just trying to help somebody out with some kind of disturbance, and then I have the skills to compassionately help them release that. I've helped, people where they've got evil, like a sticky evil, like mud stuck to them that is disturbing them, that they picked up from a house that they were clearing. Or I once was on this, I felt I needed to go to Europe. I felt really strong. I needed to travel to Europe. This is many years ago. And so I went to Europe. I thought something interesting would happen to me in Europe because I was supposed to go to Europe, following life in a sense. And I don't always get those signals to just go somewhere, but when I do and I have a knowing, I usually just follow it. So I went traveling and wandered around Europe a little bit. On the way home, getting onto the plane, I go, well, God, I was expecting something interesting to happen on this trip. At least you could let me meet somebody interesting on the plane. Careful what you wish for. I got onto the plane because nothing had happened really in Europe and nothing interesting. I didn't know why I had gone, but I got on this plane and sat down, and I came onto the plane. Well, before I sat down, there was a woman in my seat near the front, and I asked her, hey, you're in my seat. Would you like to move? And she says, oh, I'm just in that seat behind. If you don't mind, you can just sit in my seat. I said, yeah, that's fine. I was gracious and just sat in her seat, and I sat down. Then a man walked into the plane. I looked at him, and there was something about his energy, and in my mind it says, I don't like that mind, or I don't like that person. I don't like that man. That was really unusual for me. Just looking at a person, I would never have something like that come into my mind. And he came in and he sat beside me, this guy. And I go, oops, okay. And he started talking to me after a while. And it was one of the strangest conversations with a stranger I'd ever had. And I knew that he was the one I was to meet on this trip. And that relationship went on for quite some time, some months. But when we got to Calgary, he didn't have a ride home, lived in the country, and I offered to give him a ride to his home with his luggage. And I was driving out there, and whatever was in him, whatever energy had possessed him, because that's what it felt like, there was a point where I pulled over on the highway and I told the guy, you shut up right now if you want to get home. Just sit in silence and I'll take you home. I'll let you out and I'll see you next week. But I don't have the stamina to deal with this right now. I was tired from this very long trip. So he was quiet, drove him home with his luggage, and went home and shook my head. And it was like there's an arrangement that I was meant to be with him, and that this story goes on for quite a while, but got a sense that there was a deep possession of this person, this entity, and in this case, through the process, was never able to release that particular entity. So why am I telling you all this? Why are we talking about possession, and what is possession and what is evil? Frankly, I don't know. There's this, it appears in this dream of life. I talked about life being a dream. There's these poles of goodness and evil. And I do a lot of work with shadow. And I think people mistaken shadow for evil. They see an energy that they don't like about themselves. And they push that away, suppress it, and project it on others. And that projection, or that collective projection onto others, is perceived as evil. And we have many of those in our life, and this is a perceiving of evil. And so we go to war against these parts, these energies that are part of the whole, the light and the dark, as being part of this experience of life. And when we push something away, go to war against it, divide ourselves or separate, these parts become the enemy. And as long as we are fighting an enemy that is against our wholeness, then we can never win that war. There will be this sense of evil out there. If we hate any part of ourselves, hate any of these energies like anger, like corrupt people, like fakes and frauds and liars. Often those are, we hate the liar, or it's not safe to tell a lie within ourselves, and it reduces our capacity. And the way to release the evil in that case, in the case of shadow, is you actually go into and towards that part and feel and bring those back with love and integrate it, and it ceases to exist as evil. It's a part of us, even an advisor and a friend, and a capacity that we've been missing. And these shadows often come out of early trauma settings, and we split apart these parts of self. I do not see those as evil or possessions, but they might feel that way. And they're quite easy in some ways to deal with when you're ready to do that and integrate. And on the other side, we feel more whole, we feel more joyful, and we never have those triggers again against those. The war is over. We never go to war. And we're able to work with those energies in the outer world in a different way. Rather than projecting and getting anger, we can show up in our love and compassion in ways that we could not when we hold these shadows as evil. So with shadow, we go towards that energy rather than fight it or get rid of it. But at the start of the podcast, I was talking about possession, and they're different in my sense of them. It's not about embracing these energies. It's about delivering them, exercising them, in the words of the fundamentalist churches, the Christian churches call it deliverance, or the Catholics call it exorcism. And I haven't worked at the level of deep exorcism and evil spirits, but as I said, these entities, which I deal compassionately with, but very firmly with in terms of boundaries, and have them released from the person. They're not about integration. They are attachment of an entity, pain body, something else, and they need to be removed from the person, or removed from the space, or prevented from coming into the space and sealing it, as I would with workshop spaces. So in that, I wonder about the collective right now, and the collective experience, and the insanity that's going on in our world today. It's almost like it's shadow, for sure. The collective shadow is arising, and we are projecting evil onto certain people, back and forth between different tribes. We're projecting our hate and our fears onto others, and there's shadow there. And the way we can resolve or help resolve the collective shadow is work with our own shadow, so we're not adding into that energy. So if we can't stand or hate racists, then we go within and work within and embrace the racist, the judgmental part within us, the hating part within us, the angry parts, the corrupt parts. And when we do that, we take our energy away from the collective wave that is happening, and we're able to be at peace with what's happening in the world. And my sense is that if we more and more of us can do that, we can still that collective wave. And even if we make no difference, and I think we do, then we are at least still within what's happening in the world. And from a much more grounded space, we can serve in our capacities, in our talents and gifts that we have been given while we're here in this life. And we all have these capacities that once we get more clear within ourselves, when we discover those gifts and those purposes on how we serve, then we can make great contributions as individuals and collectives in this time to help transition humanity into a different place than what we're experiencing right now. But I also wonder about possession, because there seems to be an extreme that's happening in the world right now. And I wonder, do you feel that some people are possessed, or collective and groups of people are possessed? And various conspiracy theories would say that there is a possession or these other entities that are occupying human beings. I don't know. I don't know. It's a question on my mind, and there seems to be evil in the stream of life that we are to contend with, and what might the purpose of evil be. Evil seems to, if we work with it, become aware of it, experience in ourselves, and release and say no and forgive ourselves and others, it draws us towards the wholeness that we are, towards our light. It is a mechanism that takes a rough stone and turns it into a diamond. I think evil is that grindstone that pushes us evolutionary wise towards our perfection, and at the same time we're perfect wherever we are. So I don't know, let me know what you think about evil and the source of evil and your experience of evil, possession. Strange topic that I just got into, and not so strange for me, but maybe for you. Curious what you think. Thanks for joining me in What's Arising. That was honestly what was arising today.